Good.
Thanks.
That's
Okay.
the great thing about this school is.
All right, welcome everybody,
We're starting
thank
to
you
feel
so
like
much.
welcome to the community.
Okay, I'm Amanda Lindquist, for those of you who don't know me, president of the Garden Club, one of the garden managers, and wanted to start out, so for those of you who have not done it yet, please, are you wanting to reserve a bed this year, by any chance? Okay, all right.
I'm
So-
doing 90 Diamonds bed with Diane.
Perfect, have you and Diana done your,
We haven't done anything, we haven't
No,
even
I
talked
got
about
it.
this.
you got the.
Maggie did.
So this is
Oh, Maggie did
the
that, yes,
reservation
yes, thank
form.
you.
So in the reservation form are like a list of rules, and these are actually like
I have
HOA
it.
board approved rules, so it's kind of a big deal to follow them. Last year, we didn't do the best job of really policing the beds. But it is in here that the gardeners should be at least getting to their beds at least every 10 days. Checking for weeds, deadheading, making sure that dead plants are pulled, just generally the bed should look like you're going there. So if I'm there and I'm noticing, like we'll make like little notes, there's a 3 strikes rule. So we will let you know the first time, like, hey, can you please, get in bed and like get it fixed. If you still haven't fixed it, we'll remind you again. If you still haven't fixed it after the second time, you've got 3 tries to like fix it before like you could actually lose your bed. So it's really important just to stay on top of the bed and make sure that you're doing all of the maintenance and stuff. We're looking to make sure that the beds are free of weeds. We want you to be actively gardening. Seeds, at least for this year's, your seeds, we actually do have, now that I think about it, a collection of seeds in the storage closet. There is a metal box, and inside of it we have a whole bunch of seeds, and there was actually a plastic yogurt container that had a bunch of like winter seeds in it. We're gonna get better about. So there are seeds in there, you're free to share those. Currently inside of the storage closet, there are some amendments like perlite, and I think there's some sphagnum moss, and there's a couple other things that have just kind of been left there by previous gardeners. You guys are, I think, free to share some of that stuff. Susan, welcome back! Hi, you look pretty.
This is probably a really basic, stupid question, but, how do I know what to put in?
Oh, we'll get there.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for asking.
Okay.
So, let's see, and we ask that you be respectful of your neighbor's garden. I actually got lucky. We had this massive plant that almost started growing up into someone else's bed, and we want to make sure that we're keeping kind of the area free so that other gardeners can get around into their beds. Family friendly, smoking is prohibited, both because we want it to be family friendly, but also because we learned that tobacco smoke carries mosaic virus or some other kind of diseases that can actually affect the plant. So the plants, like specifically like tomatoes and things. So no smoking in the garden. If kids are in there, just make sure that you're watching them and they're not messing with the timers in other people's beds, etc. This is intended to be an all organic bed, so we're not wanting a lot of like chemical pesticides or other kind of unnatural things in the garden. We really want it to be an organic experience. That's kind of the big stuff. Can you think of anything else?
Well, just the general, like, throw your trash away.
Right, we have garbage, thank you. We have garbage, actually that's on my list too. We have garbage bins in the garden. One of the rules in there is we don't really want a bunch of like plant waste and materials in the garbage. We do have a compost manager and a compost program that we're building up right now. So if you do have greens and or browns things, and we're working on, we had little bins they did have nicely laminated little list of what constitutes a green for compost and what constitutes a brown, but they got ripped off and blown away in those storms, and we haven't replaced them yet. But we have little bins, and we're gonna actually probably make some bigger bins because the little bins are full already. If you have waste from your garden bed, you can put them in the compost bin and we'll compost them. But yeah, just throw away your trash, all that stuff. So the garden gate code is 1600 currently. If it changes, I will let everyone know. The locks have just progressively gotten worse with time, so people have a hard time opening them sometimes, they get stuck, or sometimes they have a hard time closing them. We need to replace the locks, honestly. But for now, the gate codes are 1600, and if you forget, that's the address here to the clubhouse, 1600. The storage closet, it's the room right next to the bathroom at the Spinnaker Bay bathroom, is 2137. And we just ask that when you go into the closet, you just lock up after yourself. Susan Squire has spent a lot of time over the summer organizing it for us, and she's almost through. So she's been labeling and trying to like make it neater so that it should be pretty easy like to find things, and if you do use something, to know where to put it back. Composter. So there is right now a rolling composter in the back of the garden. Donna is our compost manager. We're asking, don't throw old plant matter in the garbage, please let us compost it. Don't put things directly into the composter without first talking to Donna, because it is a delicate balance. It has to be done a certain way with certain ratios of browns and greens. So it's better if we just have one person handle it. So make your compost contributions and then let Donna handle actually composting it.
Where do you make your contribution?
So there's little bins. There right now we have black and yellow bins, and we are gonna get better. What I'm gonna do, I bought like a little chalk marker to mark on them so that it could be, it's not something that'll blow away in the next storm. Which one is green, which one is brown, and we'll do better about creating like a list of what constitutes both, and then you can put your stuff in there. They're full right now, so I'm working on building bigger containers.
Like garbage can size.
Yeah. If you can, it would be really helpful to cut up anything that you're putting in the composting into like 2-inch segments. If you can rip up your stuff into small bits, that would be helpful, because we have to have them that size before we can put them in the composter. Okay, fun stuff. Amending the soil. I have examples of all of the things that you might want to put in your garden bed. At this time, all of the soil in the beds are pretty compacted. They've gotten pretty low, so I will put out, I have like a pitchfork aerator in my backyard. I'll just put it in the storage closet so people can use it. You're definitely gonna wanna get in there and really like shake loose the dirt and try to loosen it up so it's easier for the plant roots to get in there. You're gonna want, these are recommended to us from the Fountain Hills Community Garden. Rita Applegate has run and managed 3 community gardens in her life. She swears by the following combination: 1 bag of amend, a bag of the mushroom compost, a bag of steer manure, and then a bag of the Happy Frog. This is a tomato and vegetable feed. This is all natural and organic.
You put a bag of everything into your,
And believe me, it will fit.
okay.
And she does the amendments a couple times a year. We'll have to see come winter how compacted the beds are, but you definitely want to, at least to start your bed. So the amend has lots of nutrients and nutrition and like mass, so that there's place for the roots to get into. The mushroom compost has lots of microbes. And believe it or not, all of that microbial life is extremely important in the soil. It actually is what helps the plant take in the nutrients the right way. So without a good, healthy microbe life, you could have as much fertilizer and feed in the bed as you want, and your plants may not do that great. Steer manure has more of the nitrogen and the nutrients that we want, and then this is more balanced, the Happy Frog. You can have nitrogen and phosphorus and the potash. I recommend, because of what our soil actually is, I would highly recommend using some perlite. We've got vermiculite, it's basically the same thing. It's kind of rock. And I would recommend putting in a little bit of this into your beds as well. This actually helps break up the soil, makes it easier for the roots to get through, and helps prevent root rot from overwatering. It helps allow for more air spaces in the soil. Also, because our beds don't have a lot to retain moisture, just in our environment, I would strongly recommend doing some peat moss too. Or sphagnum moss or whatever. Something, or coconut coir. I have coconut coir here. It looks like this when you first get it. It's literally rinds from coconut that have been like cut up and smushed up and then kind of just put together in a block. You wet this down to prepare it, and then you can break it up, and it actually will expand to at least twice the size. And then you can distribute it into the soil, and it helps retain moisture. And one of the problems I think we have in our beds right now is what's in there does not retain a lot of moisture.
Where did you get those?
The
coconut.
steer manure and the Happy Frog I got from A&P. I haven't found Happy Frog at Home Depot, but the rest of this came from Home Depot. And aside from the Happy Frog, like all of this altogether was about $40. So it wasn't a huge expenditure for me.
What
The
is
Happy Frog by itself is like $14, $15.
What is that brick thing called?
Coconut coir, COIR.
I was gonna suggest, you can get giant bags of vermiculite, which is similar to perlite as far as what it does in a garden, what you said. And I use vermiculite, but a giant bag would be like, you could split it with like 3 people for the whole bed.
There's
and then peat moss is also better to buy in bulk.
Yeah.
So if there's a few people that all wanna go in together on that would be a smart way to do
I think
it, a
that's
cheaper way to do it.
Smart, yeah, and it uses less plastic.
To give you an idea,
Where did you buy those? The coconut,
This one came from Home Depot.
No, I got that at A&P.
I think I got one from Home Depot too, though.
Okay, then we both.
I don't know, whatever. You can find coconut coir in a lot of places.
So how do you get this stuff to the garden? You just have to drag it in?
There is a
Wheelbarrow.
wheelbarrow there,
Oh, okay.
which is for everyone in the garden to use. It just sits there in the garden, kind of in the
it's got
backyard.
a white,
It's like gray.
Okay.
It's nice because it's a 4-wheeler, so
Okay.
it's not gonna fall
Yeah,
over if it's
okay.
unbalanced.
Okay, good.
a 4-wheeler. Is there a different one now?
No, the one that you, I thought
Oh,
it was
it's a
one.
2-wheeler.
Or you just
Whatever.
call JT in advance and say, hey, will you?
It has
can
2
you
wheels in the
download
front
another
plus the
Yeah.
back, you're right, it's a 2-wheeler,
It's a
not a
2-wheeler.
1-wheeler.
It's a Franken-barrel that I found 2 wheelbarrows and made 1 wheelbarrow.
And donated it to.
Donated.
Nice, thank you.
So for your initial bed amending, so you wanna get in there, really loosen up what's in there, add this stuff, whether or not you till and turn the soil is up to you. There's arguments for and against that. It's up to you what you wanna do. But definitely you wanna get in all of the amendments. You wanna top off the bed as much as possible. They've sunk quite a bit. Like the plants that we've planted have used up quite a bit out of those beds, so you wanna replenish.
If I have leftovers, can I leave it in the storage area for
Yeah.
people to use? Is that okay?
Absolutely, yep. That closet's for all of us to use and store stuff in.
Or you put it next to my garden, like the community garden.
Yeah.
Raise and manages are communal beds for us, so we have a couple of
So put
beds.
everything in there.
You can, yeah. Before we get to JT, so feeding recommendations, once you're in there, again, we wanna be as organic as possible. Ooh, $17, oh my god, this bottle is $17. Once a month, or no, excuse me, twice a month. So on the first weekend and the third weekend, I go into the garden and I feed my beds. And I will do, on the first weekend, I will do a sprinkling of this stuff. And there's kind of some feeding instructions, but I just basically take a measuring cup and just kind of sprinkle it around, so there's kind of an even distribution around, and then water it in. So I do that twice a month with this, the first weekend and the third weekend. And then once a month, so just the first weekend, I will use, we've got some big green, what are they called?
Watering cans.
Watering cans, thank you. Watering cans, and they're actually pre-measured out, so I think they're 2 gallon, 1 gallon or 2 gallon. You can use that and this, and you can kind of do like your mix. And you can choose.
Those are like 2 for gallon.
That's called Grow Big?
This is called Grow Big, and it's an organic mix. It's pretty mild. It's not really a heavy one, so you're not as likely to burn the roots. I would do this once a month and just mix it in with water in one of the watering barrels and just water it all around my plants. So this happens twice a month, and I only do this once a month, just to make sure that I'm not burning the roots.
What was that thing called, the liquid?
This one's called Grow Big. It's from Fox Farm.
Okay. Is that if you're just making tomatoes?
You can use this for anything, really. It's for all of the vegetables.
Besides being really stinky, what are your thoughts on fish emulsion?
I use it.
Yeah.
And this is, the garden, you don't have to do, at a minimum, I would do those. But if you want to experiment and try other kinds of things, then I would. I have done like a mixture just from working with Lynn Twitchell at the Rose Garden. I've learned she does all kinds of crazy stuff with the roses, and I've started to do different things. So like I might, on the same day that I do the Fox Farm, I may do like a fish emulsion or B1 and just do some extra amendments that way to just get extra stuff in there, but you don't have to.
Once a month. Where do you get the B1?
I get all of that stuff from A&P, but it's
Yeah.
expensive. You can also like shop a lot of these things on Amazon, like wherever you can find it cheapest, it's gonna be fine. It's
Home
the
Depot
same.
doesn't have the best in fertilizer, organic fertilizer selection. Miracle Grow, they sell a lot of Miracle Grow stuff, and that's not the best stuff to use.
Yeah,
So the amendments that we put in the soil, like the steer manure, the mushroom compost, the amend, you can get at Home Depot. It's like $2 for the steer manure, $2.50 for the mushroom, and then the amend is $8
yeah.
for a bag.
Just
So,
for your last
you
one.
can go there and get those. They have similar products at A&P, you can get them there. I don't know what their prices are compared to Home Depot. But when it comes to fertilizer, I go to A&P to get the fertilizer.
They have a really good selection of organic stuff.
Yeah.
Can you talk about mushroom compost, because we had this discussion last night at Home Depot, that JT, not to throw you under the bus or anything, but doesn't like the little mushrooms that we're growing in our garden, and he believes it's because of the mushroom compost. So can you talk about the healthy benefits of that in the garden
Oh, sure.
environment? Because you're the master gardener.
Well, so those mushrooms that come up, those are just the heads. Those are the reproductive heads of the organism that's actually in the soil. And you want that. You want a lot of it. That fungal growth, the bacterial growth, like all of that whole microbial environment is really important. Again, what it does is it breaks down what's in the soil and then has kind of like the symbiotic relationship with the plant roots and delivers it to the plant and makes it so that it's something that the plant can actually take up and use. Without, like I was saying, without a lot of good microbial life in the soil, you can put as much fertilizer in a bed as you want and the plant won't be able to take it up very effectively. You really have to. So this is a way to like supercharge that. If you don't want to use mushroom compost, that's fine. You don't have to. You could use worm compost is great.
Worm casting.
Yeah, worm castings. You can use other kinds of compost, but this is a way to really supercharge that microbial life and that diversity of microbial
And
life.
it's only $2.50 a bag, which was what I thought was a killer deal.
And what I do when I see a bunch of mushrooms popping up in the bed is I just take them and I just bury them back in.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. I just tell people don't eat them because we don't know what they are.
You can only eat,
So much
you can eat
of
every
business.
mushroom once.
You can, yeah, exactly one time each mushroom is
Every
edible.
mushroom is one
At
time
least once.
edible.
Terry Pratchett, thank you. Okay. So, do you have any questions about like the amendments and about the feeding? Like it's a game. You're gonna go in there and you're gonna play with stuff and you're gonna try different things and you're gonna see some stuff like work and you're gonna see some stuff and be like, I don't know if that worked for me or not, and then try different things. So it's all about that experimentation and finding out what you think your plants are asking you for.
So to put, I just want a real clear, like if I'm writing a list right now, of what I wanna go to the store and buy, do I want 1 or 2 bags of steer manure per bed?
You
Or
could do
3.
2 bags. You could do 2.
It's
And
$2, so
it
it's a
de-
very good cost effective
It
thing.
really depends on how much room is in the bed to fit all of these amendments.
Okay,
You may find that you get there and you only have room for like one bag, I'm not sure,
Okay.
it depends on the bed. Some of
Like
the
a
beds,
brand new bed that's not even planted right now, like there's a few of those that are ready to just, 2 bags or 1? You're just saying depending on how much height you have?
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Because the
just
amend
calculated.
is, the amend is more expensive, and I'm thinking from a cost standpoint. If I did 2 bags of steer manure, 1 mushroom compost, and 1 amend, will that be enough, or do I need 2 of each? Or, like, my question is, how much do I buy, because I tend to buy too much.
Okay, so Rita recommended, and the most beautiful bed in the garden last year followed the recommendation exactly. So I would say, let's just do what Molly did, because their bed was perfect last year.
But
They did
also
1
got
bag of
much.
amend, they did 1 bag of the mushroom compost, 1 bag of steer manure, and 1 bag of the Happy Frog.
Okay.
That's all they did. They just, I posted it on Facebook, they saw that, and they said, great, let's do that. They did it, and then they had the most spectacular vegetables of anybody in that first
And
year.
then if you wanna add
Except-
some peat moss and perlite.
I would, and I've told them
Now,
that
if
too.
you've already done it, this is important, I already done the peat moss and vermiculite in my bed, so you don't have to keep adding that every year.
Not necessarily, unless you feel like when you water, the water's just going straight through.
Okay,
If you feel like your bed is still really not holding the water, then yeah, you might wanna add more.
I
yeah,
think most of them just let the water run through from what I see.
I don't think more than maybe 2 beds actually had peat moss put in it last year.
Yeah.
So I'm really trying to strongly recommend doing that this year because there's just no water holding capacity in the beds. Teresa, did you have something you were?
I was just gonna say that, if we're gonna use coffee ground, just kind of be moderate with it. Because if you put a lot of coffee grounds, your, roots or beets or radishes will turn into black. It has like a black, skin
Is it stained or are they burnt, do you think?
stain.
Okay.
It will stain it, so make sure if you guys are putting, coffee grounds is good with the garden.
Yeah, you
But
could
just be,
like monthly or so if you wanted to, or
moderate, you know.
you could,
just,
this is from Starbucks that Reza just brought, they have it for free. When they finish with coffee grounds, like the one at Fry's,
yes.
they have like a big bag for your garden, or like a thing just right out front of the Starbucks store, so you can always, like, they're free, you can just grab them and use them.
Yeah,
It's a
so
great
just-
nitrogen bust, it really is.
You just have to be
Yeah,
careful.
Great.
just mix it moderately, don't pour like 5 pounds of coffee ground.
Oh, God, no, it's like anything else, you can go in the compost pile too, I put mine in the compost pile all the time.
Yeah, so.
It's interesting because when you're talking about like the mushrooms, it sounds like the human body, like the gut bacteria, you need it to
It is.
digest and
Isn't it cool?
like creating your own little functional body of the plants and the nutrients.
What did I hear recently? I heard something about like, we're not like an organism, we're like a superorganism. Like we're comprised of all of this interaction of all of these other organisms inside of us that make us this one being.
and there's
It's the
a
same
chance,
with your garden bed.
there's a chance that people, this is a new concept for me to hear that the soil gets better over time. There's a chance that a lot of people don't think they're a good gardener because they tried once and they didn't have the beautiful luscious success that their neighbor that's been doing it for 10 or 20 years in the same spot is getting. So, and we have people in this community who've been gardening for years and the crop just gets better and better. So we already noticed after the first 6 months of planting at this garden, the second 6 months was more like robust, the growth. So I'm very excited this year because I think we're gonna get a lot
Yeah.
of growth.
We noticed a big difference
Yeah.
from when we first planted to the end of the season this year.
Yeah,
It was huge, it was great.
but that's a good point about the gut. You can't expect a perfect gut, like, response if you haven't been pouring the, I was gonna say something smart like acidophilus into it.
Mycorrhiza.
Mycorrhiza.
I had heard Ellie had asked a question, and I don't know if nobody has gotten one yet. I have printed out some calendars, some grow calendars.
Thank you.
Ellie got one. I don't know if you want one of these.
I got mine.
Got one. So one of the questions was, is how do I know what to plant and when? And the good news is, in Arizona, you can pretty much plant anything you want once the temperature drops.
Oh, so if you don't plant now?
I would wait, I would. You can plant now, but it will be difficult.
I can go ahead though and do my soil now.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's part of why we're doing this class today and not next month, is because you really want to prep the bed and give it a lot of time to kind of the goodness to start. Yeah, agitate. You know,
It's
you
like
want it to
spaghetti.
soak in.
You want everything to
Oh,
melt
I was gonna
together.
bring this to you. I'm sorry. That's okay. Okay. So yeah, prep your soil, get all of the good stuff in there, and there are some things that you can plant now. And if you wanted to look, so like the way that it works out is like August. So there's things in the second half of August, lots of stuff that you can start by seed.
Now, do you prefer seed or can I get plants, like
You can
tomato
get plants. It's your bed. You can do exactly what you want to do with that.
Oh,
I don't have a preference. I will say, if you're a new gardener, growing from seed can be tough. And I would also say, growing from seed in those exposed beds is especially tough. So if you're gonna grow from seed, I would almost recommend trying to propagate at home in your own little like grow cups, and then take them and transplant them in later, unless it's like beets or carrots or something that's kind of like a root vegetable.
I'm gonna tell you what I did. Sometimes you wanna see the growth, and it's also really fun to see the
Yeah.
seeds pop through. So maybe even a mixture of both. Some carrots and radishes and things that'll for sure pop up and make you feel a happy gardener.
do seeds?
And then have some actual plants, so when you walk away from the planting, you feel like there's something beautiful to look at.
Okay, so now,
And even flowers, a few little marigolds or something to attract bees to your bed.
I was playing with stuff in my kitchen last year. And I, had a celery bottom and a lettuce bottom. And they grew, I can do that. That's
Yeah.
planting from a plant, not a
And then you
seed,
just-
right?
yeah. And then you
I
just
just maybe
take
sound
them.
really stupid because I don't know anything.
No, it's
I'm doing it with an onion right now.
It's
Okay.
propagating.
I
You're
was thinking about
propagating
garlic. You
plants.
could do it with garlic too.
You can go to Sprouts now and you can buy the basil, the live basil,
Right.
use it in your kitchen and have a place to put your little chunk of the plant.
And I have one going right now in my kitchen,
Yeah, so
so I
you
just
can
take that over.
totally
and
just
put
go
it
plant it in your garden bed.
there. Okay,
The
thank
other
you.
thing to think about with mixing seedlings and seeds is what's called crop rotation, or there's a better word, like there's a timing element involved. So if you plant everything at exactly the same time,
Yeah.
it's all gonna need to be harvested at exactly the same time. So you might wanna stagger how you plant, so that you have, like if all you planted was carrots and you planted all your carrots right now, you'd have 200 carrots that would need to be pulled up all at the same time. Versus if you did one section carrots, and then 2 weeks later did another section of carrots, and then 2 weeks after that did another section of carrots, you'd have a staggered harvest.
And I'll show you how easy that is to do in the square foot garden method.
Okay,
So she's gonna talk about that.
thank
So
you.
then, JT's gonna tell us about the irrigation timers and how to program them. Before he does that, so this is a water probe. This was actually a gift from Eliza. This is to check your watering. So you literally take a big long stick of some kind and you just stick it in the dirt, you pull it up, and then you see. If it comes back really dirty, then it's wet, the soil is wet. But if it comes back like totally dry, or you can't even get it all the way in there, then you haven't watered it enough. This is how we titrate water here. So you will start with a watering program and see how it's working. And as we change seasons, as it gets cooler, you're gonna probably start watering real heavy at first, and then gonna need to back off as it cools down. But the important thing to know is if the top 3 or 4 inches in dry, that's actually not as important as what's happening in that under 4 inches or below. If you can get your finger in there or a probe in there and it's showing that it's wet underneath that top 4 inches, that's not so important. And you need to really think about that when you're deciding, do I need to be watering more or less? And sometimes the symptoms of overwatering look a lot like the symptoms of underwatering. So just keep that in mind. It is possible to overwater, and that's how you would check. So before you think about, oh, my plants don't look good, maybe I need to water more, make sure you're checking the soil underneath them and see if it really is dry or not. And last year, Suzanne did this great thing. She actually mulched the top of her bed, which I thought was awesome. Mulching like that, she just took some wood chips. They were really pretty, like cedar or something, and had like a layer like about an inch or so thick on top. And what that does is the water that gets watered into the soil stays there. It doesn't get evaporated out. And it's a really great technique for water conservation. And it helps keep weeds down too.
And I got the chunky compost or the wood chips from the worm farm.
Thank you.
And that's where you can
There
get
might
bird
be a-
casings as
There
well.
might be a good, if somebody's going out there, I might.
But if you're planting seeds, you need to water more frequently until they start to
Yes.
sprout.
That's
Once they start sprouting, then you can cut back on the watering. But if you let that bed get too dry, you won't have any vegetables or flowers, whatever it is that you're planting.
So each bed has a watering system. It's removable, so when you wanna put this stuff in, it can actually be, all the pipes can just be lifted out. And then you can put all your stuff, your soil in, and then you can put it right back on top. And it's drip. If you don't like the configuration, you can change it.
And I can show you how to do that after he's,
Yeah. So each bed has a spigot, and then this is connected to the spigot, and then from here is where the pipe connects,
kind of connects like this.
kind of connects like that.
And then you've got all this spaghetti tubing that kind of comes off of the big type. And there's every 6 inches, there's a pre-drilled hole. So that every 6 inches, there's water coming out of the tubing that we have at the
And
farm.
it's half
Half a gallon per liter.
half a gallon per hour, I think it is. That's what it is. So, if you go up to your
0.8 gallons per hour.
0.8. If you go up and you have a blank screen on your thing, that means your battery is dead. And so there should be, we might need to get some more batteries.
There are batteries.
There should be batteries in the closet, and to replace the battery, it's very simple. You just wrestle with this piece under here to pop that off, and then you have access to your battery. And then you plug it back in, and it's got one side with a single prong and the other side with 2 prongs. The single prong goes towards the back, the 2 prongs go towards the front, and then it just connects back like that. And then now you have, I don't know if you all can see it, I can bring it closer. Now you've got the screen. Is that good? So you got the screen. So when you're like this and you want to set the time and you don't like the way the time is set, you can simply just hit the arrow. There's a little arrow button right here, and that's how you're gonna adjust your time. So then you can adjust. Oh, come closer. The arrow button right here. That's the arrow button, and you can see that it switches from hours to minutes to days, day of the week. So that's how you set what your current time is, current day is. So then when you want to actually set your watering times, there's 4 different start times you can have. So you can water up to 4 times a day. And the duration, I think it goes up to 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, I don't know. 12 hours?
12 hours.
Oh, yeah.
We found that on accident.
Oh, that's not
I
good.
forget who it was, but someone had accidentally set it up and their bed was watering for literally 12 hours a day.
So when you're going to set your watering times, there's a mode button.
I would do that.
Mode button right here. It's a little circle with the arrow. That is really the only button you need to be concerned with when you're setting your time. So mode buttons first sends you into the duration, or the time, the amount of time. Right? Let me just make sure. Yes. So the first thing that you're gonna do is your duration, the amount of time you wanna water, whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's an hour, whether it's 2 hours. And I would really go by the watering guide here. And I would account your emitters to know exactly how much water you're getting, because they're gonna send out 0.8 gallons an hour in that spot. So you wanna make sure that, and you wanna make sure they're all working too, and if they're not, there's
Yeah.
replacement parts, yes.
Watering for dummies, what do you have ours set to? Exactly.
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
I feel like I
I don't
have
know.
adjusted yours. I think it's watering, my beds are watering twice a day for like, I wanna say 30 minutes right now, which is, to me, is a lot of water. That's a lot. And ideally, as we get better about increasing the water retention, we will need to water less. Master gardeners would say that in a good garden system with the right kind of soil, even in the dead of summer, you would only need to water once a day, 3 times a week. So it depends on the soil and the garden system.
And the way that this past year went, a lot of the water just went right through the garden bed, and you would walk up and you'd see all this wetness around the rocks. And you're like, oh, all my water just went through, I need to water. No, that means you're watering too much, almost, right?
Yeah.
So,
Or maybe you wanna water for less duration, more times.
yes, less duration, more time. So then you go duration, then you go days, and then you can select which days you want. On here, if it's, let's see. Okay. This is where the arrow comes into play. The arrow just moves you across the screen from right to left. The mode goes top to bottom when you're doing your schedule. So when you get to days, you're gonna mark the days you want to be watering. If you have a minus on the day, that means it's going to not water that day. So I'll go around closer, everybody can see, there's little black marks all the way across.
That's the days of the
That's
week?
the days of the week. We'll show the camera to days of the week. So right now, on Monday, it's not selected. And day 1 is Monday. Okay? So then, if you want to water Monday, you hit the plus button, then that comes back up. And then to move to the next day, you just hit the arrow and you go all the way across. At any point, if you feel like you need to start over, you can just hit the mode button again and exit out. Then you go to your time of day you want to start, and you have 4 different times you can select.
Sorry, everyone.
So you can water up to 4, these are only due 4 times a day. So, the other thing that you need to know, there is an on button and then there's an off button. If you select that on button, that turns on your water, and it will not turn off until you turn it off. So if you turn it on and it's on, it's gonna run forever, constantly.
It's actually not true though.
Said that though.
It runs about 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's.
Does it?
It will shut off.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, good to know, I didn't know that.
I think you have to set it. So like you can do like a manual watering, and you push that on button, and you can set.
Oh,
how
it's,
long-
yeah, it's right, it's set for 10 minutes.
Yeah. So it is possible to theoretically manually set it to water for 12 hours. So you just have to watch.
So on the converse, if you hit the off button, let me show you the little symbol that's there. It's gonna turn off your timer completely.
Oh, no, so you have to reprogram your timer if you set it
Which
off.
one's that?
No, it just, it won't run your program after
Which one
you
is
program.
that? The off one.
So even if
The
you
off
set it
button
up,
is
it
this
just
one, the
won't
off.
deliver water.
So if you see that symbol,
Oh, wait, okay. Which one is it the?
So it just
You
means
see
on
this
turn it off,
symbol?
Okay.
to not give water until someone pushes
and
the on
even
button
if you
back again.
turn it on, it's just gonna turn on the manual side
To your
button.
program, yep.
And then when you turn it off again, it's still gonna have that off button. You have to hit the off button again to remove that symbol to make sure your program will water. So if you walk up and you see this, and I would check it every time you're out of the garden, I would check your timer, because there have been children in the neighborhood that get in and mess with timers. So yeah, if you turn it on, it does have a time that it'll run, and this one's set at 10 minutes. But you can set that to however you want and run it if you want to run it randomly. And generally, if you have it set in your program for 20 minutes and you put it on, it'll just run it for 20 minutes, then it'll shut off. That's right, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So, what I really wanted to make sure is that when you have this, if you hit the off button and you have this symbol, your program's not gonna run, that's the most important thing. So you wanna make sure that symbol's not there when you're leaving and you have it all ready to go. You wanna make sure that symbol's not there so it will water when you want it to water. Any questions?
It seems confusing now. Once you get in there and start to play with it, it kind of starts to make sense.
The
And
lid has all of the directions right here if you forget.
And other people are in the garden, right?
You can
Yeah.
always call us and be like, I just can't figure this out, and we'll help you, don't worry. So, talking about,
I have to call her, Amanda.
And I think that we can maybe laminate this and put it in the closet so it's there. It's just the instructions.
that's a great idea.
So,
That's a great idea.
Is there a directory of members, phone members?
We need to think about that,
Oh.
and we need help actually a little bit, kind of getting some of these organizational pieces put together. So maybe you might be able to help us with that.
Yeah, but that's something I could do.
Okay.
Yay.
That would be nice. Okay,
I can
so
type.
when you get into the garden, all the way around the perimeter, the way we set it up is it goes all the way around in one big loop. This is what we call, this is poly tubing. So we've got your poly, and it's set up directly to the timer. If, by the way, you get out to your garden and you notice water is leaking from your timer, let us know, and we will troubleshoot that. It may be that we need to replace some of the parts, so just let us know. So
at the end of each of these, there's a little
filter.
pressure reducer, and there's a little hole on the side, and sometimes the water comes out of that little hole.
And if that's the case, that means we need to replace it.
Is that what?
They're not supposed to do that.
Okay.
I mean, they do that, but they're not supposed to. Okay, so a lot of the beds are kind of set up in a grid. So imagine that this is actually a straight line. And then on the other side of the bed, like, let's pretend this is the bed. So we have, it goes all the way around the edges. And then we have the poly tubing, which a lot of people just kind of set up like a lattice and it just goes straight across. And some people feel like that's enough water. This is actually what was recommended to us by Fountain Hills. And some people, like I worried that actually wasn't gonna be enough water, so I did it so that it goes across and it goes, so horizontally and vertically across so that I have excess water. I noticed that there were some people in the garden who still didn't quite like that, and so they put up like little drip heads and different things so they could have more water in different areas, and that's fine. The club supplies the poly, we supply this. If you wanna do extra stuff, you absolutely can. But in the closet, I call this my irrigation gizmo. I don't know if there's a word for it.
I like it.
Yeah. If you want to add more tubing, there is in here, so there's a cutter and it cuts the poly. So like if you're in your backyard and you're doing repairs or whatever, this one is actually a little bit dull, but you can cut pieces off with the cutter. And then the more important thing for you guys who are in the garden, if you need to make adjustments to your poly and you just need another line, like man, this is not enough water, I need another line. There's a poker on the top, and this will pierce the poly, puts a little hole in it. You can
Looks
hear
like
it.
a moray eel.
Yeah, you clip it, and it's punctured a hole in there. From there, you need a coupling. And we have these in, so we have the cutter gizmo, and we have the tubing, if you need to do any of this stuff. And you take it, and you pop it in there, and it should kind of click a little bit. You'll hear it, it's nice and secure. And then from there, let me take one that's actually. Now, some people who have carpal tunnel or other like issues with their wrist, or just maybe don't have like, maybe they have arthritis, they may find this to be troublesome. If that's the case, don't worry. If you need help, we'll help you. But you kind of wiggle that on there.
Another thing that's helped too is if you get a lighter and then just
Oh, is that soften it?
lightly warm it up, it will soften it up and then it will shove it tight.
Never heard that before. That's interesting. So now we have a line that connects to this. And this one is a little bit, this is actually from my home. Like these are all my own home things because I have a lot of irrigation stuff break all the time in my yard. But so like the stuff we have at the garden has little holes in it. Every 6 inches there's a hole. So if you wanted to, you could have it running loose and just have a line. And if that's what you want, that's fine. All you need to do is put a cap on it. Otherwise, you're gonna lose pressure. So you can use one of these, this is an emitter, and this is a pressurized emitter, and that helps you retain the pressure. So you'd have water coming out of the end, plus every 6 inches. Or if you didn't wanna do that, and instead you wanted to just add a line and have it go all the way across, then it's the same process. You just poke a hole. Put in your little cap, your coupling, I mean. And then just cut it to the size you need it to be and just attach it. It's very, very, very simple. There's not much to it. And you can have, it's your garden bed, and you can adjust it in any way that makes sense for you. The Buddha bed, there's a little statue of a Buddha, it's our Zen bed, I don't remember what we're calling it. She has her set up, and actually the kids' bed too, with the little froggy fountain, I don't know if you guys have seen that. I have not done it in straight lines because I have plants in kind of weird places, and they're sort of more strategically placed for the aesthetic and not necessarily for the function. So we've kind of set up lines in those two beds that kind of wiggle and turn and go all over the place, just to make sure that there's water emitted in places where there are plants. But this is, one time I had one of these lines break in my yard, and this was before I learned about irrigation. And I was like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? We have to fix it. And we hired a guy to come out, and we paid him like $600 to do this. And I was like, and I watched him do it. I'm like, are you serious? I paid you how much money for this? So we don't hire irrigation guys anymore. I do it myself now. But this is the secret. This is polytubing and what we call in gardening spaghetti line. And you have all of these couplings and emitters, and you can kind of play with it. Like if you go to the Home Depot store, they have emitters.
Look what I did, I made you this is our grid.
That's what the watering grid looks like.
So this would be like what a watering grid would look like. Can you picture it now, the big outside tube and the small pipes in between?
Yep.
If this is our 8x4 bed, every square is a square foot,
Mm-hmm.
and this is.
My bed,
This is
we
how
didn't-
mine is right now. but-
I didn't feel like that was enough water. So her bed goes across like this. In my bed, it goes across and down. So I have like a grid of watering. So there's more water kind of dispersed throughout.
Yeah, so you can just build your own.
Nicole
water system.
Fedek, when she had her bed, did something kind of cool. She set up some lines, she put some extra lines on, and if you go to the Home Depot store, you can find little sprinkler heads. They connect exactly the same way, but they will emit water more as a spray, and you can have like a spray of water in a circle, or you can have some of them that are shaped. It'll just emit like a 180 of, like in a line of water. So there's different things that you can do to play with it.
Before you put your soil in?
I would put the soil in first, and then she's gonna teach you how to do the square foot gardening. When you have a plan of what you want in your bed, like think about what plants you want and where you want your plants. And once you've done that, decide, okay, what does my watering look like? How are those plants getting watered? And then you can kind of design your irrigation around your plants. Does this seem like a little too much?
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's
I'm gonna get is it time for me to tell about that part? It sounds
Yeah, I
like,
think so. So this is just more to explain the mechanics of how. But once you kind of have a plan of what you want to plant, you can decide if you like what's in the bed, because there's already something in your bed. Everybody has watering set up in their bed already.
Okay.
So you don't have to change anything if you
okay.
don't want to. But if you decide to make a plan that has different watering needs or something special, or if you want to do something different than what's there, then I want you to know how you can adjust it. So
and also
that's
now we need it on video.
yeah, we need it on video, that's true, for future gardeners.
Okay, so we've talked about you all have a bed, and I gave you all a piece of paper in front of you. Let's look at this as if we've got an 8 foot by 4 foot bed, and this is the exterior. And what I like to do for gardening, so I'm teaching you a method that really works well for a raised bed, and these beds it works really well with. This is the square foot gardening method. And so we can make our plan based on your drawing. And if you need more of these, like you can start filling in spots right now on it, like pretend this is yours and I can give you a blank one later. And then you can color code it and make it pretty. So this is what a completed plan, well, this is my version of a completed plan. Show everyone. So this is my, so when I went to plant my garden, I was ready and loaded, okay? So because I like that order and that structure, and that we're all different types of gardeners. We've got the people that like to just throw seeds around, and then others like, so I like to have order and structure. I think you might like this method too. So the square foot garden method is simply put, so we've got our soil now. We've done all of our, we're gonna do that this month. We're gonna go in there, we're gonna get our compost, we're gonna turn it around, and we're gonna get it ready. And then we get to plan what we want to plant. And you're gonna take your this paper, and you're going to say, oh, it's middle of August or first week of September, I'm gonna plant, and these are the things that I want to plant. So maybe you'll circle them. And then you decide if you're doing transplants or if you're doing seeds. And so you'll have your list of everything that you want to plant. Now, somebody really super smart out there figured out exactly how many seeds go in each square foot of what type of plant.
Wow.
So for example, if we're planting carrots, you have to plant by seeds because you can't transplant a carrot or radish to make them grow. They have to be sowed directly into the earth.
Pretty much any root vegetable.
Yeah, so if we're doing carrots, you can put 16 little holes in that square foot and put a seed in each one and then cover it up. And then you've got your carrot square. And you can pick each square, you can assign it a different vegetable. So here we have it. I have my carrots and I've got my 16 seed spots. So, and I tried 2 different kinds. The reason I like a plan like this is sometimes when they start growing, you go, oh shoot, I can't remember if I planted the Danvers carrots there or the Yardlong or the Scarlet Montes, which one is which. So I have it on my plan so that I know later on, this was a really good type of spinach, but this one wasn't. So the last year I planted a couple of different types of spinach, a couple of different types of radishes, a couple of different types of carrots, so I know what we like to eat, what tasted good, what looked good, what grew well in that spot in that space. So an example is spinach, the Bloomsdale spinach I planted from seed, nothing happened, but my purple Orach spinach, the purple spinach was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
And I tended to find out that anything that I planted that was purple in my bed last year grew. I had a very purple bed. My purple cauliflower grew really well. My purple peas, and I had a purple version of bok choy. Remember the bok choy? So it was so funny, and it's my favorite color. So maybe you know, it became a purple palace of beautiful things. And then if it was supposed to be a different color, it didn't grow. No, just kidding, but kind of. So this is my my little plan. Now, I meant to bring you all a picture that you could pass around, and I don't have it. So I just want you to know that if you Google square foot gardening, you will find all sorts of diagrams, drawings, and information about what's what. And I will email this whole thing to you, including the document you can print out after this meeting is over. And the camera. Is that am I in the right spot? So this is the different square foot garden methods. And I even have a laminated one on the trellis in my garden. And you're welcome to it. The Magnolia Garden, bed number 17. It might have blown away in the storm, which means I'll need to do a new one. I like to have a couple of little laminated things, and I just kind of stick them in the trellis, and you're welcome to use it as a guide. So radishes and carrots, there's 16 squares. They take 16 seeds per square. But when you have something a little larger, like lettuce heads, that would be 4. So, and if you're doing transplants, you would just plant 4. And sometimes you're looking at it going, I feel like I want to fit 5 or 6 in here. Or these are small lettuces, so I could really truly follow the guide, because there's been many gardeners before you that figured this out. So we don't have to do trial and error anymore. A watermelon takes 2 square feet, so you would put 1 in the middle of 2 because it gets bigger, right? So a cauliflower head is 1. A broccoli head is 1. So I plant those right in the middle. What's really nice, oh, and the other thing, going back a little bit, there are grids on some of the beds, and some of them we have to rewire. But if you see little eyelets every foot on your box has it. So, and if you want a box that has it, I'll make sure you get a box that has it. But you just take twine and you lay the grid on the bed, so that when you're looking at it, you'll see, let me show you this picture. You'll see physically, and you can leave it there, you can leave the grid there, or you can remove it after you've planted everything.
Not the eyelets, please.
Yeah, leave the eyelets,
Those right.
but the twine you can take the twine off. So, at several of the beds last year, we set up with the eyelets. So all they might need is stringing twine through. And we'll make sure you get one of those types of beds if that's something that you want to. But I know for sure the one that you've been assigned has it.
Okay.
So that is a really simplified version of square foot gardening for you. We also want to not talk too long about this. So did I under-explain it? Was it the right amount of explanation? I tend to over-explain, so I was really trying to keep it short, because this method is really kind of foolproof. So if you want help with plotting it out, sometimes I get really nerdy and I go into like companion planting. Once I've kind of penciled it all in, there are certain vegetables that don't grow as well next to other vegetables. So I always like to cross-reference with companion planting. I'm a new gardener, and so I found this method to be really a nice way to do it. And when you're new, and I know Ellie's one of the new ones, and we have other new people that will be watching, this is a really easy way to make sure you're not crowding the bed. So like, for example, when I planted radishes and I put 16 holes, I would put like 2 seeds in each hole because I want to make sure one grows. But then when you get 2 coming up, you have to pull one out. But it turns out that we're talking about microgreens, and you can just eat it right there and it tastes like a little radish. So I like to let them grow to a point where one of them is clearly striving more than the other. But you want to make sure you always thin the bed, and you make sure you follow the list, because every time I try to crowd my bed, because I do, I'm like, oh shoot, I ran out of room for this, but I really want to plant it. So then I kind of try to put it in like the middle or on the corner somewhere. Don't do it. Just try to really, because it doesn't work. People a lot of times, and I thought, oh, I can't pull all those radishes or those carrots, I don't want to harm them, and it's so terrible to like remove something that's growing. Yeah, then you end up with a bunch of little dinky carrots instead of one really big carrot. So that's why we do it that way. So don't buy carrots from transplant. I tried that and it didn't work. I got a bunch of dinky carrots. The ones from seed did better. And somebody, Caitlin, the queen of gardening, and Molly, their bed was so great. She had these giant carrots and these big like zucchinis the size of my arm. I was so jealous. And someday somebody will be talking about me.
This is your year.
I know that my purple cauliflower got a little bit of screen time on the Facebook
Your
page.
piece was amazing.
My piece did turn out nice. So yes,
It feeds me while I drop I water.
Well, I'm glad somebody ate from the garden. And I plant things like peas and like the cherry tomatoes, because I love when people are at the garden, I'm like, oh, here, taste a tomato. Or the kids club, they like to try different things. So we did like radish taste tests, and I drew all these different types of radishes, and then the kids got to taste it. And it's so fun because kids really love eating fresh vegetables if they grew them. So that's a secret trick. That's a secret trick to get your kids to eat their broccoli. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that. And if you have any other questions, I will be happy to answer.
Okay, so the last thing on the agenda, there's two things. I just wanna say, for those of you who maybe aren't ready to commit to having a garden bed in the garden, or if you know friends who wanna be involved and wanna learn and wanna help us plant, we do need help. I did email all of our friends of the garden. I tried to really get organized and, okay, these are the things that I need help with. I'm gonna ask for help. And I didn't get any responses, so. And I think it's just the timing, people are out of town, it's super hot, no one wants to be out there right now. But we actually have 9 open beds this year. So if you know people who maybe want a garden and are looking for an opportunity to be in a group, we would love some help. In the meantime, what we're gonna do with these beds while they're open is we're going to utilize them we're gonna grow some pumpkins, at least in a few of them, and I would like to use a few of them to grow more food, both for our gardeners and to share with.
I have some pumpkin seeds. My husband last year grew like 150 pumpkins at our house. And he's got a bunch of seeds that he's been sharing with some other
I
people
love
in the neighborhood. Cool.
Yeah, I saw Marsha Jackson put pictures
Marsha,
up.
yes,
She's already got sprouts.
yes,
That's
yes.
awesome.
So I would be proud.
I would love those.
Okay.
So we want to do like a little pumpkin patch in a few of them, and I'm gonna plan out some of them and use them to feed our gardeners as a group, and also for our charitable contributions, our food bank stuff.
How do we communicate what beds are open? Because I know all the beds are named and numbered, so if there's a bed open,
Like open to be reserved. That's a good idea.
Would that help, do you think, to drive people to the garden? So yeah, we could create a little signage that says this bed is available to.
Susan
Available for
Squire
beds.
made us these really cute little signs for the kids' bed and the communal beds and the herb beds. And I wonder if she'd be willing to make us a few more for the beds that are open.
We could also do them similar to how those be kind, be
Yeah, those are
strong.
cute. Well, it just did not hold up in the wind. So
Right.
it would need to be
up and held up and held.
but I think that's a great point. So I'm looking for volunteers who want to help us manage these open beds. And as people come along who are like, oh, this is awesome, I want a bed. Great. So then we harvest what's in like a bed that happens to be the closest to being ready and let them take that bed over. So that's kind of my plan for the turnover, is at least these beds are being used for something good, and then we can do some amendments and stuff for them.
Just question on the pumpkin, isn't that a little bit late?
It is a little late, but we're gonna try.
It's late for Halloween.
Yeah, you can still get it for fall, like
Yeah.
November pumpkin for.
You might have it for Thanksgiving and make pumpkin pie.
Yeah. Pumpkin flavored everything.
Oh yeah, the seed.
The
I'm
last
gonna
thing,
still buy seed until through the rest of the it's the first 2 weeks of July and August.
they are not frost friendly, so you can plant them,
Yeah.
but to get them for Halloween, it is too late.
Oh, okay.
You need to do them, I think the latest is like the second week of July if you want pumpkins for Halloween.
Oh, okay. Well.
I think, that's what I recall.
how about
The
Christmas
last
time?
thing was Q&A. Were there any questions that weren't answered, or I know there was a lot that we just brain dumped on you. We're gonna do more of these classes.
My plan with those 2 community gardens is I'll plant enough tomato, and so I'm gonna put in like maybe around 12 tomato on each garden, and then that way, so hopefully this year
We'll
I'll
have
have more
Tomato harvest.
then we will have tomato harvest, and then we can go ahead and share that with the community. Because I always have lots of tomato, and I ended up just giving it away. And so I don't know what you guys think. You know, there are other community garden and people could probably share with their greens and all that. But I think if the community garden, if I put enough tomato in there, then people could harvest and then they could do what they wanna do.
I like it. I think that's great.
I think it would be another good idea is to flag the beds that they're looking for a partnership.
Yeah,
250 might be too much for some families, and if they know that there's a bed that is going to be split, or however many partners you're wanting in a bed, you know, to flag that bed, so if someone's walking by, they could at least call you or call someone and say, I'm interested.
okay, I think that's a great idea.
So is there a way on our website that, you know, we have a plot, we have a map of the garden. And so is there a way that we can put the name on each bed? So for example, I have to call Amanda and says, well, there is something there that needs to be
Yeah, we'll have
harvested.
Ellie make a roster this year, so it'll be available to the people with beds in the garden.
Yeah,
I already have it on my to-do list to send
Oh,
her my roster.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ellie.
Yeah, just name everything, and so if I have questions with Amanda, well, this and this,
Yeah.
then I could tell,
The concern about like Magnolia bed is Rachel Thomas, and here's my number, like the bulletin board. I don't know if the bulletin board would be a place to post that stuff, but I think people still care about privacy a little bit. So we'd
Yeah.
have to have people's permission if we posted there.
no, just the name,
Information.
just the name of the garden. So like, when I water the plants and then your irrigation is blowing off, like
Mhm.
shooting. So I call Amanda, it's like, you know, this bed has,
Yeah,
because
we'll
a lot
just-
of times I forget the name once I get home.
yeah, you
Oh.
definitely should have access to that information, so we'll make sure.
So
I
the
just take
director
pictures
have
of the
names,
bed name
phone
and then
numbers,
what's
the
wrong
name
with
of the
it.
bed.
It doesn't need
It's
to be
ready
the
to send
owner.
you as soon as I'm in
Just the
internet.
name.
Yes, I have it all organized.
Something
in
else I
my-
forgot to mention too with the timers, they're connected to a spigot and that spigot can be turned off. So you have to make sure it's turned on, which when it's longer, it's on, when it's shorter, it's off. It's like your regular spigot at home,
That's the problem. Oh, no, this is
So.
every
Lefty loosey,
harvest.
righty.
yeah, exactly.
That's California.
I know, they're beautiful.
Okay.
Amanda, the 9 beds that are open, is that including, beds that people wanna share?
No, we
It's-
have what we are calling 10 beds that are open, cause we have 2 that are half.
Two
beds.
half
One of
beds.
One is yours and the other one is, Jill Brown. So we have 10 beds technically, but we could break 1 or 2 of the ones we have and offer the 125 partnership. I don't know how to,
Maybe we just put that separately on Facebook, like, hey, we have a couple of beds that already have a person in them who are looking for partners. Both of these people are snowbirds, so they would need help through the summer, and so the fee for these beds is only $125, cause you're sharing it. Maybe we just do a separate posting for those,
okay.
and then maybe
And
they'll
if we
get more
have
people
5
thinking.
people reach out, then we can pair up other people.
That's a
Exactly.
good idea.
Good
I think,
idea.
yeah, I like it. We thought about putting you with Jill, because she's the other one, but she's also out of town this summer. So like you would still have the same problem. So-
Although,
Oh, wow, I love those ones.
You know, I don't mind being paired with whomever, but when I'm gone, you know, feel free to come in and pick
Okay,
and take.
would you,
And that would be a nice way to maybe get a flag color code that this bed is open for free picking, so that,
and that is also in the works. This year was a practice and getting started and getting set up, and now we're trying to poke holes in some of our original plans and figure out how to make it better. It could be that by next year, we have a totally different way that we're even running the garden, because I feel bad when I see people with food that's like ready to pick. I'm not gonna go pick somebody's cherry tomatoes, but but if they're not going to, then I'd like to, you know what I mean? So having the roster for the gardeners is probably a really good first step in that communication of, or even some version of a, I don't know how you guys feel about text threads or WhatsApp, doing like a group that's within the gardeners. There's Facebook Messenger, there's WhatsApp, or there's text threads. That would be where we all have our name in there, and if anybody sees something going on, like, hey, it's gonna be freezing tonight, we need to cover the beds, who can go down there, and somebody might be out of town and say, can somebody cover my bed? I think that that could be also really nice communication, but it would be something we'd have to all kind of agree to, and that's the part that gets sticky.
I totally agree. I totally agree, because a lot of us leave, especially in the summertime.
I'm willing to create a WhatsApp, which is what I think is the best, because not everybody goes on Facebook anymore, especially in this hood. But it would require people downloading an app if they don't already have it. I would be willing to create a WhatsApp or a Facebook thread. I would be willing to create it. I just need to know if you're
I
willing to
think
have your name
text
on
would
there.
probably better.
The problem with texting is when iPhones and Android speak sometimes in those groups, it doesn't always connect. And so my family is constantly saying they sent me a text in the group message and I don't get it because they're dumb Android users. So if you have an iPhone, let's do it.
Yeah, and one of the concern you brought up is the food. It just hurt me to see greens.
Okay. One thing that we talked about in the beginning, and I think maybe we could just start implementing it, is we can
Do
have.
you want me to stop the recording?
Yeah, I
at
think
this
that's
point?
fine.